and pleasure to welcome Annie Spencer. Annie is a UK elder, a ceremonialist, a shamanic teacher, a rites of passage and wilderness facilitator, a storyteller, a wisdom keeper, and in her very unique own way, a sacred activist. Now, to take that a bit further, Annie has run groups and offered training for the last 40 years. And her background is in psychology and earth-based spiritual traditions. And she's really skilled in combining them. I have experienced that myself. There's a depth to it which comes from both worlds. Yeah, she was first introduced to the spiritual ways of the first people of North America in the early 80s. And these teachings resonated with her, and she started to follow this kind of earth-based spiritual practice all her life. She has apprenticed in the North American tradition and has studied Mayan teachings from Guatemala for over 14 years. Having said that, Annie is also very versed in the traditions of the British Isles. She is really, I'm not exaggerating here, a much loved storyteller and brings the old myths of Britons alive. And when you listen to her tales, she really kind of enthralls you with them and creates a kind of very magical space. When Annie tells a story, people listen. And maybe the rest of creation listens as well. We can talk about that later. So as a teacher, Annie opens pathways for others, illuminating their life's journey. And her primary interest is in the renewal of ancient ceremonial forms to create a path of beauty upon Grandmother Earth. That's Annie's own words. So welcome, Annie, and welcome again, everybody else back after the break. Please put your questions for Annie into the chat and follow the chat. There's interesting comments usually. So Annie, hi, and so glad that you're here, despite the flu symptoms you experience.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I apologize if I suddenly burst into coughing, but I'll try not to.
And if you have to cough, which you just cough. So the first thing I wanted to hear about and maybe get the people a bit familiarized with is your own journey, because it's an interesting journey, isn't it? Because you studied originally at Oxford, as far as I remember.
Mhm.
Did you do psychology or literature? I don't remember what.
History.
Oh, history, yeah.
I was always interested in people, and that was the best I could find. It was
Yeah.
very academic in those days.
But then you changed, and you changed through meeting, in a way, Indigenous Americans, or
Oh, no, I changed. I got a Hindu meditation, and I went off to India twice
right.
and came back overland. That was my first, but I suppose I went to Oxford because I went to quite a small school and I seemed to be clever. And so they all said, this is what you do next, and this is what you do next. This is what you do next. So I was sort of following this little, I didn't really think about it. But underneath that, I always loved the land. My mother was born on a farm in Cornwall. And so I learned a lot from my grandparents about the land and working with the land and working with animals. So I always had this great love of the land. I really wanted to be a farmer. But my mother said, well, go to university first, and then if you like. And of course, by the time I got into university, no farmers would. There was a sort of gulf between me and the traditional farmers at the time had then emerged. But I was also always very drawn towards spirituality. I went to church. It was quite sweet. I was confirmed. It was deeply in the Church of England. It was deeply disappointing. I waited for the bishop to put his hand on my head and something was going to happen, and nothing happened. And then I found this What found me really an Indian teacher, and I started meditating. And I meditated really regularly for about 2 hours a day for about 15 years. And then somewhere it didn't take me, it didn't help me in my life, and it threw up stuff, which I think meditation does. It throws, it energizes you, starts clearing your system, it throws stuff up that's psychological. And then you're sort of told, well, meditate, which doesn't really help with whatever problems are being thrown up. So I started getting headaches, so I stopped meditating. And I was invited to go on this training for humanistic psychology, and it was through that my first teacher appeared in Cornwall, sort of a long way from anywhere. I don't know how he got there to find me, to grab me, pick me up, and say, "I'll have you." And with the teachings, I felt I'd come home. But I was thinking when I read this thing, when you said, we'll ask you how you got here, and we're talking about a new emerging way of being. And I thought, actually, by the time you reach my age, you realize that life is constantly emerging and life is constantly changing. And every sort of decade or so, you need to look around. I find needed to look around, and things were being expressed in a different way within our culture. Different things were becoming important, and there were different emphases. And so I think it's always going on like that. So I don't think we need despair if we think, oh, such a huge change is needed, and how can we possibly do it? Because my experience is, I was thinking when we first were learning Native American ways from North America, we were all into magic and power, if you want the truth of the matter. And we didn't think very much about the earth, not really. We were so excited by jumping into alternate realms and doing sweat lodge and doing big ceremonies and experience in alternative realities that, the earth was just there. And at that point, most people weren't particularly worried about what we were setting up for ourselves. And then I met this man from Guatemala, and the emphasis changed again. And then I look at people today, a lot of whom are experimenting with different sorts of, which we plant teachers. And the thing has changed again, but also the focus has changed because now people realize the purpose is really to make a connection with the earth. The purpose is to try and hear what the earth has to say and try and get ourselves each individually back in harmony with her as much as we can. And that has changed since I started 40 years ago in the 80s, the early 80s, or however many years ago it is. And I think whatever we embark on, the change will happen, but we can help it come through better and faster. And the better and faster it comes through, the less probably all humans will suffer in the transition.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my little.
I'm with you, and that's really interesting what you said because I have experienced the same
Yeah.
thing, and it really went from we are having a kind of hippie experience with these earth-based traditions. They brought something in there to now really shifting more to actually the earth itself and becoming more um, embodied again and embodying it in us more again, isn't it? There's something there which also has changed. It's not only about we are part of the earth is part of us, and it's one system. And I think the understanding comes. We wanted to talk a bit about ceremony because you said something interesting. Ceremony plays a central role of co-creating with spirit as it opens us up to spirit, but it also aligns us or our dream with the dream of the earth. What do you mean by that? Because we wanted to talk about how ceremony helps us in uh, this co-creative role we are playing.
So I was talking about ceremonies the other day with somebody yesterday. And the thing I need to say is this is spiritual ceremony. There's a ceremony they do at the town hall when they make them. Oh, there's a bizarre ceremony they do to make Trump. Anyway, we won't go there, shall we? But we have to because it's in our faces all the time. And then the spiritual ceremony, and the point of that really to call to spirit for help. And so to do that, we have to so if we want spirit to come to us, we have to make a beautiful throne, a beautiful space. So we have to attract spirit towards us. So part of the purpose of making ceremonies is to make a space where you make beauty, you clear everything up, you try and get rid of stuff that's not related to what you're about to do. Then maybe you wear clothes that you only wear for ceremony, and maybe you wear talismanic jewelry that you only wear for ceremony. And then maybe you burn herbs or incense that you only burn during ceremony. So the whole thing, and maybe you sing songs to call in spirit that you may have learnt or may have come to in the dream. And all these things and all these layers build up a space that you hope will be beautiful enough so that you will be answered. And then from there, it depends what you're asking for. But if you're asking for help about, what should I do next? What can I do in this huge mess? Just me. So then you have to listen. And we have to learn to listen. People talk a lot about going out to a sit spot, going out on the earth again and again and again to the same place and doing nothing. Just listening and watching and smelling and taking in with our bodies, with all our senses, what is around us. It's a very important practice so that by the time we come to make our ceremony, we're able to take in what's coming to us. Because spirit is always responding, spirit is always gifting us. But the difficulty for us is first of all to notice, and second, to make sense of what comes to us.
Mm.
And then we talked, didn't we, specifically about dreaming.
Yeah, and
So,
how,
see,
yeah,
it's quite interesting because I was 4 days ago, I was told a story about dreaming. I thought from Scotland, the north part of these islands, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just slip this in, even though I've only heard it once.
if it,
And it's not totally, and I can see, like most of the stories from this land, there are little bits missing, but it's a teaching story. So, shall I tell it? Will that be all right?
yes.
So there's always a naughty person, isn't there? That's how it usually begins. If you're in Native America, there's a naughty girl going out picking berries. She jumps over bear shit, which is totally forbidden, and then she meets a bear. Well, this time she's out picking blueberries, and then she keeps on seeing bigger ones, and she moves away from her friends and her family. She moves away till she looks around, and God, she's all on her own, way up on the hill. And then you know how it is in the mountains. Suddenly a mist will just they swirl around the peaks, and the mists come down the clouds, and then they go up and they come down, and they suddenly she's surrounded by mist, and she can see nothing. But we all know that mist is a good gateway to the other world. So we understand that something is opening up for her in this part of the story when they say, there she is surrounded by mist on a little narrow path on a steep hillside. So she doesn't dare go forwards or backwards in case she trips over and falls down. So she just stands there wondering what to do. And she stands there for quite a long time, lost and bewildered, out of the familiar, in the mist. And then this great shape comes towards her, which is rather huge and up like that. And she's a bit frightened. But there's nothing she can do, so she just stands there. And as it gets closer, she realizes it's a stag, followed by 3 deer. And they come walking up to her. And the storyteller said, well, then, the deer get used to her. But I thought, no, the deer wait for her to get used to them. And they allow her to stroke their backs so that she's not so afraid and she feels familiar with them. Now, we know that in this land, the deer often are the ones that take us into the other world. So now she's already at a gateway of the other world. And then her guides have arrived. So they turn round when they've stood with her for a while and they slowly walk off and she follows them up the path, follows them through the thick mist until they get higher and the mist clears a bit and there are these two rocks which are sort of a gateway into a narrow, high valley. And they take her through those rocks. So that's another step in. And they take her up this valley until they come to a cave. And in the cave, an old woman and an old man. And the old woman comes forward and welcomes her and said, so how have you found your way here? And what are you doing? And she says, oh my goodness me, I'm so sorry. And I'm so glad to see you. I'm lost. I'm lost and I can't find my way home. Please, can I stay the night with you? And the old woman looks at the old man and they smile. And she says, No, you can't stay the night, but you can stay for a year and a day. Oh, goodness, that's a long time, she says. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You know, my family will wonder where I am. And they said, well, that's your only choice. A year and a day, or you have to go out into the mist by yourself. So she decides to stay. They have a nice fire going in the cave and they seem really friendly. So she settles in with them. And the old woman takes her out in the daytimes and they find different herbs. They find mugwort and pine and all sorts of different plants. And the old woman teaches her how to work with these plants. But meanwhile, in the back of the cave, the old man is sitting, spends a lot of time sitting, staring into a small pool of water. And he looks and he looks and he looks at this pool. And meanwhile, the old woman teaches the girl how to milk the deer, the 3 female deer. And they milk the deer and then they put the pot on the fire, not too hot, and they stir it until the milk thickens into a form of soft cheese. And a friend of mine has just discovered how magical cheese used to be considered and how it was given in offerings to the holy, to the land. Anyway, they make this soft cheese and then they give it to the old man. And the old man has been looking all the while, this goes on for days, into the pool. And from what he's seen in the pool, he makes little beings, little objects, and some are very beautiful. And when he has a whole pile of them, he calls in the songbirds. He calls in the robin and the thrush and the little tits and the eagle and various birds. And he gives these little things he's made to them, and they go out and distribute them around the world. And at other times, when he's looked into the pool, there are dark, misshapen, difficult, horrible objects that he makes. And then he calls in the kites and the carrion crows and the ravens, and he asks them to take them out and distribute them around the world. And so this goes on for a year, and finally a year and a day have passed. He shows her how to do this as well, and he says, these are dreams that I'm sending to the people. And then after a year and a day has passed, the old man and the old woman come along and say, well, now it's time to say goodbye. And the girl says, no, no, I love it here. I love it here. Please let me stay longer. I'm learning so much from you. I'm so grateful for everything you're teaching me. And they said, no, a year and a day is what you get. And they sent her out, and she went out, and the deer went out and led her down the hill, down the path, right down. This is on the west coast of Scotland, until they got to the shore. And there was the sea. And she said, oh, I know where I am now. Thank you. I'll go that way and I'll soon be home. But the deer made a circle, a semicircle around her, and didn't let her pass. So the only way that she could look was towards the sea, which was full of islands. And there she saw a little, is it coracle? You know, a little boat with someone in it rowing towards her. So she could do nothing but wait for this boat to arrive. Well, of course, in the boat was a beautiful young man. What else would be there? And he jumped out the boat and he said, there you are. He said, I've been dreaming of you for a year and a day. And I dreamt that you would be here now waiting for me. Will you come in my boat with me? Will you come back to my island with me? So she did. She went back to his island and she lived there with a long time with him. And she taught all the people everything she'd learnt about dreaming and about plants. But you know, in time, she died. And in time after that, her teachings were forgotten. So a lot of what she learnt, we have forgotten. But maybe stories like this will spark something inside us and remind us that our dreams don't just come out of our heads. They don't come out of only, sometimes they do, what we did yesterday. Maybe they're sent to us by some being somewhere who's looking into a pool and seeing what's coming and trying to send us a message and say, you know, pay attention to what I'm telling you now, and you can help things go in a good way. So That story just came for you lot because it only came on Monday.
Wonderful.
By
So
chance, told me on Monday. And I thought it'd
now
be,
you ask us all to let that story sink in and let
yeah,
the dreaming come.
and let the dreaming come and think of it when you go to bed at night. That's
Mm,
also a good thing. What you do when you go to bed at night quite often affects where you end up in the night. But you know, as the stories come out and are retold, then our memories are jogged a bit.
mm,
Generally, somebody, not everyone, but somebody will really connect with that and start dreaming and
mm,
start remembering and feeling more connection with the earth.
yeah,
And
yeah.
other people will do it in other ways. Other people will make ceremony and ask, and make ceremony and ask, and maybe they'll make ceremony in a sacred space and then go and spend the night in that space. You know, there are wonderful places in Cornwall, as you and I know, Krista. And I've slept in some of them. Yes, it's true. Because I always think, you know, there are circles with stones and there are underground chambers with great stone roofs and there are quoits that you can creep into that. And all that granite, that great granite, run through as it is with crystal and many other things, as has a lot of teaching in it. And I always feel that a place that has been communicating with humans for a long time maybe finds it easier to talk to us than a random rock on a hillside that may have not really had much to do with us ever at all and has maybe been kicked a bit and doesn't even interested in us. What do we know?
Mm, mm, mm. No, I understand that, and what you also described there is that we then form with our dreaming and being in that circle or in that cage or wherever it is, we are dreaming from that connection because we are connected now with nature.
We just have to remember, don't we? We have to remember. I mean, if you talk to the minds, it's all very complicated, and sometimes one can get caught up in the complication of, you know, the Milky Way is running down my spine, and something else is in my gallbladder, and my liver is reflecting something else. And I think the thing to remember may be more of a impressional way rather than with all this intellect, is
Mm,
that the way that my body is designed reflects the way that the earth is designed. And the way that my body is moving to stay alive and how it goes through its cycles and patterns reflects the earth, the way the earth is moving and going through her cycles and patterns. And if you lie on your back out on the land, preferably not in a town, and you look up and you see the moon, maybe you see the stars, and you see the stars, and you see the stars, and you allow yourself to go out there, and then you begin to understand that you are made in a
of
similar
great
way
stuff.
to the
Yeah.
stars themselves. So actually, until we really feel that connection, all our clever thoughts and ideas are still milling around in the human world. And if we would only just feel that connection, then we can be quite simple. And a little simple idea will come. And we don't have to be, sometimes we have a grand dream. That's the other thing. You can have a grand dream and you can see how you could do. I did it a bit with my, which I'll talk later, my rite of passage. I thought, oh, I'll do rites of passage and then it'll spread and we'll do boys as well and then we'll train people up and quite soon the whole of Britain will have these 400 rites of passage. And then you come back to the reality and you think, you know what? All I'll ever manage is a very small thing. And I'll maybe take 10 girls occasionally and a few people will come and help. But that's enough for me. And if everybody does a very small thing, that's enough. That's
Mm,
more than enough. If everybody connects with the earth and then we struggle to live out, it is a struggle. I looked at a group that I'm a part of on these WhatsApp things, and someone said something, and someone else took offense and attacked them, and then they got defensive and attacked back, and suddenly there's this whole thing like that. And I thought, who cares? He's
mm,
your brother. He's in your group. He's trying to work the same way as you. Maybe you wouldn't have said what he'd said there, but treat him with kindness. You know,
mm,
when you go out and I find, and I sit with the trees, and maybe a bird will come by, or if I'm really lucky, a deer will come by, or a fox will look at me from a distance, whatever. Or a bird of prey. I remember having a bird of prey, it was in a place, but they put it on my arm, and it was this great beak and these great talons, and it looked really ferocious. But when this being stood on my arm, it was such a gentle
Mm,
being. It
mm,
needed all that to
mm.
get its food, but that was not his or her nature. They
Oh,
were
I love that.
very gentle being. The whole of nature, you have to slow down, you have to quieten, you have to listen. The sounds are very subtle. You have to watch really carefully. You have to notice because stuff is happening, but it's in a very subtle way. And when you come away from that, I don't know, I feel really refreshed because I've got out of all the loudness and the harshness of what we create
Mm,
into back where my being really feels it can operate in a good way. So yes,
yeah, yeah.
going back and going back.
You are saying something in different words and in different ways, which seem to emerge almost here today. Is this reconnecting and really reconnecting properly with Earth in all its everything, and that it's a subtle process as well, isn't it? That the messages are subtle, and we need to embody it. We need to feel it rather than think about it. And I love that, and I think, oh no, I think, yeah, I think ceremony does something very similar. We are embodying something. We don't think about what's happening there. But if our intent is clear, something through the ceremony gets embodied. There's something there which, yeah, helps us to embody that gratitude or that whatever it is the ceremony is about, rather than just thinking it or envisaging it.
Isn't the difficulty keeping one's mind saying, okay, you carry on, man, but I really don't want to pay attention to you.
Yeah,
Could you, I mean, I wish you'd keep quiet, but at the very least, can you sit over there and
yeah,
witter on the way that you do? You're right, because the whole thing is ceremony is experience.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
seldom that spirit comes and says, well, hello, Annie. Hello, Krista. Now, here's what I have to say. Write it all down. A, B, C, D, E. It's like, but something happens and you take it into your body, you know it. And then after a while, it will come out of you and you'll think, where did that come from?
Hmm,
Doesn't
hmm.
matter where
Yeah,
it came from.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
more you can harmonize with the earth and with the seasons and with the energies. So also, I've been ill for 3 weeks. Dear me, I'm never ill. But anyway, but it's the best time. It's the middle of the winter. It's made me rest. It's made
Mm,
me just be still and do nothing. Do nothing, not read, not write, just lie. Just lie and be still in the dark. And we'll see what comes out of that.
mm,
So I've made space now in myself for whatever's around to drift into me. And maybe that old man has sent a few little cheesy dreams my way. And that was the worst at one point was, I was coughing every hour on the hour, so I couldn't dream. That's very exhausting after a while if you don't. And then when I finally got some sleep, the dreams were coming in fast and furious, and I'd wake up in the middle of a dream and want to go back to sleep immediately because there was more wanting to come in.
mm,
But some people are night dreamers, and some people dream during the day.
yeah.
They make a ceremony, and it may be an image comes to them. It may be a song comes to them. It may be a feeling in their body that after a while they can become conscious of. But again, we need to develop our consciousness of what we experience in our body because so used to ignoring it unless
Mm.
it's screaming at us.
Hey, of course, of
And
course.
and
Yeah,
it takes in so much, doesn't it? It takes in from everything around it.
yeah. And it has a knowing anyway, because it is the same stuff as the earth is, as the stars are. And there is a deep knowing already. And
Yeah,
sometimes I find through ceremony also that knowing gets not reawakened, but it comes to the surface, doesn't it? And it becomes conscious.
you're just remembering
Yeah,
what we already knew. It's like that girl, she
yeah.
took all the ways of dreaming back to her people. And although it's gone underground, whatever island they were on up there in Scotland, some people will have it in their DNA now.
Mm,
What goes into your body sometimes goes into your DNA. Now, I don't begin to make any statements about that. I never did biology or physics or anything else. But after a while, you understand in your being the stuff goes into you and it stays in there and it changes who you are.
yeah.
And I know people talk about for everything to change, we have to change. And I want to say, I really want to say, don't worry about that because it will happen anyway. At this time, when I was, 40 years ago, everybody had to do psychological work because none had been done and nobody knew anything about that psychology, and it was all a mess. And most people couldn't begin to cry or be angry or anything in England, particularly very repressed they were. So we all had to have a horrible time going through all our psychological mess. But I feel as a group, enough of that has been done. Some people, they really need it. I still work with people because they've had such a difficult time. But a lot of us can live with how we are.
Mm,
Actually, if you go to the earth and you do ceremony and you listen to your dreams and you listen to what she's saying and you start changing, your whole psychology will change. You will heal. And there's two words that now everybody is saying, but we all say such a lot, don't we? And really, we should stop saying and just do. So I know I'm sitting here saying again, I apologize really, because so many of us are out here on the electronic saying, and the two words always come back to gratitude and generosity. And if you sit with the earth and you remember how beautiful it is, even though you may be weeping because quite next to you there's been a clear cut or there's been a dump of rubbish or a thousand other things we're doing. But somewhere you remind yourself, and every time I eat, every time I take some water, I remember how amazing that all this is just here for me. And so then my heart fills up with
mm,
gratitude. And then, only then, am I able to be generous. I can't be generous if I'm starving and unhappy and grumpy and feel nothing's gone for me. You have to go out into the world and remember how much is given to me. And then you can come back. And then we can be kind to our brothers and sisters who may have been deeply foolish. But never mind. We get a bit like, ideas are everything. They're not everything. Statements are everything. They're not everything. We all get it wrong all the time. I mean, why would spirit ever come to a human? Why would a deer come near a human? Why would a robin want to come in my garden? When I come out, he jumps into the top of my tree and sings a little song for me, whatever time of day. Why would he do that when he knows what we're doing to destroy his whole way of life? Rationally, they wouldn't, but rationality is so limited. We have to get outside of that to get back to the way we really are and get back in connection with what is actually our home, right? We have to make these very nice indoor homes because cities are so dreadful. But as I've said before, I think probably here, these friends of mine have a roundhouse and it has no windows and there's the most basic stuff inside. And sometimes it rains, so you have to keep the doors shut. And then when you open them, you're in a slightly dim place with a fire, and there's a beauty. It's nothing, it's a bit of grass and a few trees, but it looks so amazing. Then you don't need all this stuff inside. And in a way, it distracts us.
mm.
Simplicity of life, anyway.
Yeah, and what comes across to me, and I love that, is that it also then brings us that joy, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
once we are joyful, then we can give.
yes,
There's
yes,
there's something about the gratitude, and then experiencing that beauty of life and then feeling that joy. And then we can live because
we're full of heart.
we're full.
No,
Yeah, maybe that's it, because we're full. So
yeah.
maybe that is one of the things to take also from here, to really yeah, be in spaces and surround and create things which fill us, and go out there and feel that this is there also for us. We get full again. Yeah,
And
no,
we get full again, our imaginations start working,
yeah.
and everything feels possible, and things might change. And the darkness that's these dark ideas a few sorry men have to, take all the resources for themselves so that they can build a rocket, go to Mars. This is so mad. I love it. I don't love it. I hate it. But it becomes smaller.
Yeah.
Like Alice in Wonderland said, in the end there was this terrible court case going on and there were, people were having their heads going to threaten to have their heads chopped off and goodness what all. And suddenly Alice says to herself, but this is only a pack of cards. And then she wakes up and then all these dead leaves rolling. But in a way, everybody's dream is just a dream. But how strong can I hold it? And how many people can hold a similar dream to me? And if we hold a strong enough dream, then what are we calling this thing? I'm trying to be in harmony with what?
No, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
Um, so if we hold a dream strong enough together, the other dream will collapse. It just will. It's like you can walk in and out of realities. And ceremony helps us learn how to walk in and out of different realities and how to hold a particular reality and how to hold a reality where we are in touch with the holy. We are in touch with, shall I say, the pulse of life. We are in touch with the creativity of life. So then things come into us. And maybe some of them feel like our own imagination, but never mind, because we are a part of that. So life is trying to fill us with their dreams of how it might be.
Mm.
If we would but noticing it's hard work. We actually have to work quite hard to open up
Yeah.
and really notice that stuff. It's not just, oh, I'll go out and sit in the land for 10 minutes and everything will come to me. I think you have to practice and we know, don't we, Krista?
Mm.
We have to keep doing this stuff over and over again. And
Yeah. I
sometimes we
think
know what we're doing and sometimes we think, well, that was a load of rubbish, but never mind. I try.
you know it more than me. You said something once which I really absolutely loved. You said this very rude words. You have to get your ass off the couch and actually go out into the moors, no matter if it's 12 o'clock at night and it's freezing cold, because if you get the call, you better do it. And I think this is exactly where we are falling down quite often. We know theoretically, but we don't necessarily put in the work and the effort to really reconnect properly. I'm as guilty as the next one here. I'm coming back to just to keep you on track, because I could listen for you to ever, and I think most of us could. But we also said that because you brought ceremony into various strands of the change movement, didn't you? I mean, I remember you held one up at Stonehenge for the resistance camp, which was there at the time. You also held a ceremony, a river ceremony, river blessings. Um, I remember I think we attempted ceremonial work within Extinction Rebellion on the marches. Tell us a bit more if you have any ideas to bring it into kind of more action-orientated environments, because it's a different ballgame, isn't it?
So there's direct action, isn't there? And there's trying to create a new world.
Yeah, okay,
And
good.
I just want to say that to
Go
me,
for it.
they're different. So trying to create a new world is creativity, whereas doing direct action, which is also important, is saying, hello, everyone, wake up, wake up. I think taking ceremony to a big crowd of people is very problematic. And
Mm.
sometimes you can do it, and sometimes maybe you just have to do it off at the side that Jonathan did, didn't you, when there was a big action in London and you went to that fountain and did water ceremony every day and held space. And I did do a big ceremony with which I think I've talked about before. It wasn't Kirby Misperton, it was that other place up near Blackpool, against the fracking.
I was the
And
fracking one. Yeah,
and
I
and it
remember that
just
one.
the deer came again, you see. Preston New Road, thank you. And the deer came there and told us we had to do it. We were thinking we wouldn't be able to. And in the end, but the time arrived. And because the time arrived, all these activists who really were not much into spirit, which was fine, suddenly, for a short while, were open to us. And we managed to do something. One thing I would say, be careful, don't try and get people to be sad, because generally when people are meeting together, they're so relieved to be with other people. It's a time of really celebration and excitement. I remember going to some ceremony and we were all told we ought to look at the trees and be sad, and everyone just chatted away, it didn't do. And be simple. So, I mean, in a way, a lot of the time what I do, I did it there is remind people always start whatever you're going to do, and maybe this is all you do, make an offering to the land. Or if there's water, make an offering to the water, make an offering to the rocks. Just say thank you, because then you're saying, hello, I give you something delicious, and maybe you will be helped. But the thing is to remind everyone why we're doing it, and that until we include the land, we're just still running around in our human world. I mean, I know people have tried to plant trees outside the Houses of Parliament, but really, maybe dig a hole quickly before the police stop you and put in. Well, I was talking to someone who was talking to the Kogi, and they said, you should give back the minerals that you've taken. You should give your silver jewelry and your gold jewelry. You should bury it back in the land. You should give it back to her. Well, some people may want to do that. Some people may want to give meat. Some people may want to give liquid. Some people may want to. Everyone will give what they feel. But again, you need to sit. What does this land want? What does this water need now,
Mm.
today? And how can I do it in beauty? So my offering isn't some tawdry thing I throw in or some, I actually make something of beauty of it. And I say beautiful words to the time. I'm trying to praise and honor the land or the water or whatever, wherever I am. So if I'm starting a demonstration, maybe I start by praising the earth. And it's quite difficult to get people to put that in at the beginning. It's not for the people, it's for the land that we're going to walk on. It's for the land that's sitting at Tyburn or Oxford Street or wherever you are, that we're going to march down. That underneath that tarmac,
It's
there are worms and all sorts of organisms, and there is the earth herself. And if we were to not walk down that tarmac, quite soon they would come up and say, hello, here I am. I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. So it's thanking all the time. I think that's the main thing to do, is to express gratitude, because it's quite beautiful, and it's quite easy for other people to understand who maybe are not spiritual, and maybe it'll touch their hearts a little and remind us all this is why we're doing this.
mm.
If we don't, I mean, I know we think we're doing it for ourselves, but if we don't, we are part of the earth.
Mm.
What we do for the earth, we do for ourselves. And the earth is a much greater part than these few individuals are. So unless we attend to the greater part of ourselves, we're not going to flourish anymore, are we?
Oh, I love that. And of course, that's one of the first things I learned. I did a training with Ani in ceremonial work for women a long time ago, 20 odd years ago,
Oh,
long time ago. And
when we were young, when you were young and I was middle-aged, what? Anyway,
anyway, that's not quite true, but anyway, about 25 years ago, a long time ago. And one, I remember a few things, but one thing I always will remember is that you said, if you want something, if you ask for something, you need to feed it first. And it was interesting because you said it in connection to fire. You know, the fire ceremony. Feed the fire first. Show the fire that you care, that you're giving something to it. Don't just ask this fire, now enlighten me, or whatever it was. I forgot what it was. And it always stuck with me, this kind of giving and giving to the land. And even if it's just our gratitude, but give something. Because what we have done, I think, in spiritual, especially New Age circles, but also others, is, oh, please give me this, show me that, do me this, you know, that we're constantly asking. And again, we're putting ourselves in the center of it all, don't we? Instead of realizing.
yes, yes.
And that's what I'm hearing right now. Good.
Don't put yourself in the center. And if you're going to do plant spirit medicine, or what's that one that uses the toad, the secretions of the toad?
I know,
I
Kambo.
have to always say something about that because I don't think most people realize the way those secretions are got is by torturing the toad.
Yeah.
When the toad is in distress, it will release them. So there's no way anyone should be. Is it Combe? I can't remember.
Kambo.
Combo, that's right.
Kambo. Yeah.
I just need to always, please don't do that, and be careful with ayahuasca, which now has been grown in greenhouses, I believe. So she will not have the
Mm,
power that she had when she was living with her friends and relations in
mm,
her natural place and eating the soil in her natural place and with the organisms and with all the microbes, everything in her natural place fed her to make her what she was.
mm,
And
mm.
so and really, really be careful. Anyway, this is not what we're talking about. But I
No,
wanted to say something about, because you mentioned
unit,
why
unit,
why
yeah.
would we do rites of passage as a doorway for young people? And I just wanted to say, I think it's important when you're thinking, what shall I do to make this beautiful world come? First of all, do many different things. Don't just be stuck that this is what I do. If some opportunity comes along, take it because life will give you little opportunities to do something here and to do something there and to do some and just do it and just trust. And the thing about so one of the things that I do is at the moment do a ceremonial rites of passage at the moment for girls because we have to prepare our youth. And it's quite hard. We do this ceremony, we prepare them, we do this 4-day ceremony. Quite a lot of people come to be the community. A lot of people give their time and energy for this ceremony to happen. And they give it knowing that they will never get the ceremony themselves. And sometimes they find it hard and say, can we not have more ceremony for us? And I have to say, no, we have to be generous. We have to teach our young and start giving our young what we didn't have, because we have to start feeding the young, because the change that's going to come, certainly for someone like me, is going to come at a time beyond our own. And we have to be generous enough to sow the seeds, to do the work, to till the soil, to sit with the land, to dream, to teach, to do little bits in the middle of all this hideous chaos, so that something beautiful will rise up when we're gone. So I feel working with the youth is really important. And doing what we can, because we don't really remember. But we try and we think, now they've been through something. So when they do this for the next youth, they will do it better than us. And then when they do it for the next youth, so will they, so that in at 3 or 4 generations' time, we might be getting somewhere. And maybe we'll be sitting up there waving at them, they won't notice us. Or maybe we won't, maybe we'll be gone. Maybe we'll be a leaf on a tree.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you rudely because we are running out of time. And as always, I could talk to you forever or listen to you forever, really, rather. We have a few questions in the group. We have about 5 minutes. Annie, can you speed answer? Jonathan will convey the questions. He has taken some notes.
Can't hear you.
There
No.
we go. I've unmuted. Thank you so much, Annie. Gosh, yes, you ended talking about generosity there. Thank you for your generosity with all of the wisdom and stories you share. And hopefully we will be able to fit in a couple of these questions. First one here that I've got, which is from Max. Max talks about listening to the land and listening to the dreams. But you know, one of the things that you talked about was if enough of us kind of are dreaming this and holding this dream. He talked about how do we share this and how do we kind of share the dreams that we have and the messages that we have from the land with one another, so that it builds enough strength and power to create change.
Okay, good question. So what have I got to have a minute for each? How many questions have we got?
Let's go for a minute for that one, and we'll try another one afterwards.
Okay, so good question. One thing is to hold the dream, and it will percolate out from you, and other people will pick it up. Another thing is to use metaphor and story. So don't be rational. And that's why finding the old stories is a good idea. You look around, and when you start looking, people know you're looking, and then people start turning up and saying, do you know this story? Like the girl who was picking the blueberries. And the other thing is to do. Find a way of doing something. And when people saying, oh, have I got to join a room?
No.
Okay. So when people say, so when you start doing, people come and ask questions. So I think doing is the most important form of communication. And if you do communicate with stories so that people get a feeling and their imagination starts working for themselves. That's what I saw off the top of my head. Next.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much. There was another one you mentioned very early on to do with sit spots at power places. And somebody asked about the importance of that and how they might work with that. Could you explain a little bit more about those, please?
Well, sit spot is an eco-psychology thing, isn't it? But it's an unpretentious. You start anywhere. You find a place that seems friendly, that you know that you can go to regularly. So if you live in a city, you may sit by a tree or just sit on the grass in the park, but try and sit in the same place. If you're fortunate enough to go to a power spot, great, but practice is the thing. And then you say, okay, I'm going to sit for 20 minutes. If I haven't got the patience for 20 minutes, I'll start with 10. And all I'm going to do is observe with as much of my senses as I can. And you'll find that actually, if you go out onto the land, you have to go quite a few times, and then the land and the animals get used to you, and then they'll start showing themselves to you. So just keep doing it. You don't have to do it for long.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Annie. And I think we'll
we are
leave
out
that
of
there
time.
with questions to do with time.
Okay.
Right. There
Okay.
are more questions, Annie, but unfortunately we are running out of time.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Well, they're welcome to email me them if they like, I spoke. And
Yeah.
I'll sit here and send them a reply. Or they'll just sit there, the answers will come. If
Yes,
the
exactly.
question arrives in you, then generally the answer is not so far away. So I want to thank you both and all your team for all that you do to make this happen.
Yeah, you're very
It's not
welcome.
a very tedious work, and I congratulate you on it. And I'm very grateful that you've given me this opportunity and all these other people who I'm going to listen to some of the time after I've had a rest. So,
After you get a rest. We want to thank you as well, and I think I speak for everybody. Oh yeah, the thank yous are coming in on the chat. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Annie. I mean, if you have a look at the chat, but I thank you from all my heart that you came despite having a flu, and so does Jonathan. You are such a valid person. Well, for us as well, you know. you are an honorary member of Sacred Earth Activism.
Well, you know, Krista, I really do like talking with you. So it's a pleasure. If I had to sit here by myself, it'd be much more hard work.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to talk to you each time. I really enjoy it.